The In It Together with Lori Lynn Green talk show is a positive way to start your day. Ready for some encouragement?
Yeah, let's do it. I'm pumped. Let's let the healing begin.
Come be inspired, hear moving stories, even laugh out loud.
Can't make heads or tail of what I'm saying.
Just incomprehensible.
Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
You'll hear real people doing real things to make a real impact.
You are heroes every day.
Hear honest, compassionate, engaging issues you care about.
You see people come together to do good in our community, and the more we come together, the more good we can do.
Listen in and get started on redesigning your life and hear what's positive in Greater Manchester. Here's your happy host, Lori Lynn Green.
Good morning, friends in Greater Manchester. Welcome to In It Together. We're so glad that you've tuned in. If you'd like to find us on the web, you can go to inittogether.net. Listen live or to previous shows, even link to our Facebook and Twitter. And if you like and follow us, you'll see we're bringing out the best in people to influence positive change in this community and beyond. Today is It's a Wonderful Life with coach, speaker, and executive director of the John Maxwell team, Marc Major. What are we talking about today, Marc?
We're talking about shifting your creativity into high gear using your imagination.
All right, we'll be back right after this. Stay tuned.
Little Leapers and Knowledge Keepers Childcare and Preschool offers learning experiences that give kids a healthy sense of self and meaningful connections to the world around them. We teach children from a positive perspective so they learn healthy conflict resolution and develop character. Owner Jennifer Lever has over 28 years' experience in child development. She's helped children learn to read as young as 18 months. Join our happy place where we make happy happen. Located in Pinardville, bordering Bedford and Manchester. Call today at 603-491-1780.
Hi, I'm Lori Lynn Green, advancement strategist and owner of AlphaAdvancementStrategies.com. I've been very successful at helping people overcome stressful situations to get immediate results in their personal and professional lives. At Alpha Advancement Strategies, we provide a non-judgmental and supportive environment, empowering clients to focus more on reaching their goals. You can find us on the web at alphaadvancementstrategies.com or call us at 603-860-9260. Alpha Advancement Strategies is where you invest in yourself.
Hi, I'm Marc Major, certified coach and speaker. Join me Wednesdays at 9 a.m. for It's a Wonderful Life, all about leadership development and living a positive lifestyle. Only on In It Together with Lori Lynn Green.
Welcome back to In It Together, kicking off It's a Wonderful Life with It's a Wonderful Marc. Good morning, Marc.
Usually I'm wonderful.
You are wonderful.
I try to be wonderful.
No, you are. And
All right.
I'm grateful that you're here. And every week we try to share value with those that are listening. As a matter of fact, this morning we welcome all of our internet radio and live stream listeners. Obviously, we welcome your comments, your questions, or you can even call us at 603-384-3535. We would love to hear you. And even if you watch this after on the live stream, you can put comments later, and Marc or I will comment.
Always glad to get feedback and to see what, because the premise of the show, we're trying to add value to people every week. So, let us know, is it adding value to it? And as we talk about leadership and especially the different subjects on this show, I would love to hear from people if there's topics they'd love to hear about, because we've got pretty much the full spectrum covered when it comes to leadership. So.
Absolutely.
So today we're talking about using your imagination, creativity. You mentioned creativity a little bit the other day on the show, but take a little different slant on it today. You know, a lot of times people just go through life and they just maintain. And it's what John Maxwell calls the coasting zone. You know, people do as little as possible. And I think what happens is people get stuck in that zone for lack of self-confidence, or maybe life is beating them down so much that they don't even want to get up and try anymore.
which is
and that's a tough
unfortunate.
place. That's a tough place to be. And so if there's people in that zone and they don't want to be in that zone, and I can tell you from experience, I've coached people that come from that exact zone. And after a few months of coaching, they're like back up and ready to rock and roll. And you can see their lives progressing, their careers progressing. And that's what coaching can do for people, too. You don't have to be stuck there.
Right. I just want to encourage people, anybody watching or whatever, all you got to do is go on, you push your share, and start a watch party.
That's cool.
And what that does is that gets everybody gets notified that you're watching this. And so this morning's topic.
I will do that.
Yeah. So this morning's topic, obviously, we're talking about creativity, but it's also about thinking yourself to success. In other words, one of the hindrances you're talking about is not realizing your creativity, right? Or
right.
Using your imagination.
Well, God has blessed us all with an amazing imagination. I've read so many different articles talking about how many literally billions of computations our brains can do per second. I mean, it's amazing. Our brain is better than any supercomputer that's ever been devised, and it's because, well, where does that come from? I mean, we're plugged into the mind of God, who's created everything. So that creative energy flows through us, so we don't have to settle for. We were designed to be creative.
Well,
and to live a good life.
I think people get into that mode because they don't really know what it is they want.
Right.
And so if you don't know what you want, or, and that is an interesting concept all itself. Nobody ever even thinks about it, especially, people who have tendency to be givers.
Right.
I remember working at a place for, about 4 years and I loved where I was in the position. It was an administrative position in a private school, and I really enjoyed it. I loved the people, and I functioned in a lot of ways in there. Ran pretty much a lot of different programs in the front office and all kinds of things, and it was great because I could come up with and use all my gifts. I could, create systems, and I could, relate with people and help people, and that was something I liked. But when the end of that came and I was going to go into another season, I started to apply for jobs, 130.
Yep.
Because I thought that's the next thing you're supposed to do, but I never stopped long enough to think about what I wanted. And so after doing that and the final job interviews that I went to, I thought I had it in the bag. Two managers loved me, and they were sending me to a department that needed me, and they didn't like me.
Oh.
I wasn't what they were looking for. And so that was the first time I got discouraged and said, why am I even bothering to do this? And then I realized, what I couldn't think of what I really wanted to do. Right. And it took me, for a couple weeks, I had to go through this process of realizing what I never really considered, what do I really want, instead of just doing what I think I'm supposed to do. Right.
Yeah. And when you do that and dwell on it and meditate and pray about that, God points you in the direction of the giftedness He's given you.
Well, and that's it. It takes some soul searching.
And it does take some soul searching. In fact, I was reading this morning about, spending quiet time. Instead of being busy and scurrying here and scurrying there, the best time we can spend is that quiet time with God. I do it every morning, and that points me in a direction for the day. And don't feel like, if I'm taking this time, whether it's 15 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever, I could be doing this and this and this. No, the best thing you can be doing is meditating, because you're in a zone where you're going to come up with solutions to things that scurrying around 100 miles an hour during the day is not going to lead you to.
Yeah, and so this is as we're talking about, putting ourselves in a state where our imagination can think about what is possible in our life, maybe what we like, because like I said, most people, they get out, they go to school, they go to college, they go to work, and then before you know it, they're just doing what's expected of them, what they need to do, what they have to do, all those things, but they don't consider those things, and it takes you got to slow down.
Of what they really want to do. Perfect example, and this was a couple of years ago, we were at a ball game, and I had gone up to the concession stand, and it was still early, so there wasn't a lot of people around, and got to talking to girl that was in there. She was working for the summer, and so I got to having a conversation. Oh, you're in college. What are you doing, etc. And I said, so you enjoy that? And she goes, no, I hate it. And I said, well, what would you really like to do? Well, this is expected of me, and, my father did this, and they want me to do that. I said, you're not going to be happy. I said, everything being equal, if you had your choice of what you want to do, what would you really love to be doing? She wanted to work on a horse farm, taking care of horses. And she's going to school for a business degree. And I said, there's like a zillion horse farms in New Hampshire. You can probably get an internship at any one of several that'll bring you in, show you what's going on, and then you can really see if that's something you really want to do. And so, and then you'll know. But you're not going to be happy doing something that, because you're always going to have in your back of your mind, what if I really wanted to do that, but everybody wanted me. So,
right. I think about, Mark, how interesting our educational process is that really stifles this creativity and imagination and really discovering who I am and what I want to do in my life. Because, kids aren't taught to think for themselves. They're taught if they think different than what is being told that there's something wrong. And there's not a lot of freedom in being yourself. Right. And I think that's kind of learned, by the way. And so you have people that coming out of school, they do everything you're told, they get into college, even choosing which college or what they're going to be doing because of how much they'll make or what somebody perceives is going to be the trend or whatever, but never really self-discovering what am I going to want to do for the rest of my life that I enjoy. So there's so much pressure, and you and I know how many times we've heard that most people don't even use the degree that they have when they get a job.
Oh, exactly.
And so some of the people that hire them are, a lot of times it's not what the degree says, but the fact that you accomplished that shows that you can do something else.
Exactly.
But I'm like, if you're going to be there, why not be there and invest in what
you want to do?
Yeah, what you really want to do. So I think pushing kids right out of school to do that is probably not a good idea. For my kids, I didn't do that. One of them waited a year. One of them waited, I think, two years. Right. And I gave them that time to think about it.
Sometimes they need that time.
Yeah. And it was good because they're both doing exactly what they went to school for.
Well, something I was reading the other day, and this kind of hits it, and I'm just paraphrasing, but it talks about, we're born and we're kids and we're creative and we use our imagination and, they give us a box of crayons and here you go, use your imagination, drop whatever you want. Right. And then all of a sudden you go to school and they say you got to do this and there's this formula and in science and this and that, and they put you in a box and you go to work. And at some point you get to be middle age and it's like, I want my crayons back, right? Because
and I'm not taking no for an answer.
Right, because it's like you suddenly realize, and I've actually worked with a lot of people that have come to me for coaching that they're like mid-career and they're totally miserable. They're in their early 40s, mid-40s, and they're looking to change career, but they don't quite know how to go about it. And I've actually helped people do that by discovering what it is that what's their sweet spot, what do they really like, and just letting people know that, sometimes you have to take a step back to go too forward. I think one of the big things that people hesitate on is the loss of the income.
Right.
But if you're good at what you're moving on to, that's going to catch back up again.
Well, and there's a way to translate from one to another.
Right.
I've done that with several things where you can continue doing what you're doing and begin to develop something. And, and until that kind of turns itself over that way. One of the interesting things I'm thinking about is, especially with some of the clients I see, is they're older a lot of times, and they feel like I'm too old, like you said. But it's never too late. And
it never is.
The other obstacle I see is that people feel like they need permission.
Right.
To just be who they are and do what they really want, because nobody around them may be doing it, and people might have said, well, what'd you do that for? That's dumb. And it's like, who cares?
I grew up with a lot of what do you want to do that for? And
well, I'm doing a lot of what people said, what would you do that for? And that's dumb. And I'm just like, well,
I mean, I always knew that, when I was done my quote 9 to 5 career, because of all the experiences that I've had, that this is what I want to do, is to speak and coach and train and help people. You know, I always say if I can help 20-somethings and 30-somethings avoid, you know, a lot of the landmines I had to deal with back then, I'd love to help them. And, you know, so that, you know, that's what we're looking to do. So the next zone is, you know, people's comfort zone. They get in a comfort zone where it's like, I do what I've always done. And they stay there. You know, usually people aren't necessarily happy, but they deal with it. And because it's familiar, you know, it's like that comfortable pair of slippers that you always wear because they're comfortable.
Right.
And you know you should get a new pair, but, you know, you have to break in a new pair. And a lot of people don't want to break in a new career. They're you know, they're not happy, but, you know, it's always like the fear of the unknown. You know, if I take the next step, you know, and again, as a person of faith, sometimes you just have to trust God and, you know, step out. I always say step out in faith.
I think one of the things is sometimes as people know God, they know about God, but they don't know him. And so a lot of times, you know, they're going on blind faith, trusting God, hoping something will come through, rather than really having that relationship with him to know what he really said. And this is where we get to the place. It's like, if I know he said it, then I know I can count on him to finish it to help me do it. Right.
And so, you know, it's important, especially if you want to come out of that comfort zone, is to set new goals. Set goals that, you know, if you set goals that you know you can reach, you're not going to work that hard at it. Set goals that you think are like impossible. And so that'll give you the energy to go do them, because when it comes to setting goals, it's not about reaching the goal. It's about who you have to become in order to reach that goal. The progress you have to make, the stretching you have to do to learn, to grow, to stretch in order to be able to reach that goal. It's not necessarily about the goal itself.
Well, I think we make it about stuff. I think God wants us to have the goal and reach the goal too, but it's not just about the goal. It's about the journey and developing us into that person.
And if you develop into that person, guess what? The goal's going to come.
It will.
Yeah.
Yeah, it will. And again, not just random goals. I mean, it has to really resonate with you. It has to connect with you at a deeper level.
Right. Well, it has to be something that gives you energy to, you know, if you're not excited about getting up in the morning, get a goal that makes you burn with a desire to get moving. You know, like you hate to go to bed at night because you get so much, you know, that you want to do and accomplish that, you know, it's like, oh, I got to go to bed. And you can't wait to get up and get started again the next day.
Well, this is what helps us continue to step out in faith day after day, is to have, first off, knowing that God said it, a God goal, and knowing that his promise is to bring it to pass as you just kind of follow his instruction. And that's a daily thing, not just he told me, now I'm going to go do it my way. Right. We're following his instruction every day. And sometimes it seems like we're waiting for him, but the truth is he may be waiting for us to let go of something. He may be waiting for us to let him change us in an area or something. And I always tell people, if you're stuck somewhere, do the last thing he told you. Right. And then and then he'll open the next thing up. And I think a lot of times people don't realize that they hold themselves back. God's not withholding anything from us.
Right. He's just waiting for you to take the next step.
Yeah.
And, you know, sometimes you just got, it's kind of like mountain climbing, you know. Yeah. Sometimes you got to just take that next step and that next step. Right. And, you know, a lot of times you're going to try a goal, and if you say, oh, I don't know how I'm going to get there. Well, you know what? We don't know how to do anything until we start doing it. When you think about it, right?
Right.
Think about when you started driving.
Right.
You thought about everything. Turning the ignition, putting it in drive, stepping on the gas, stepping on the brake.
Hypersensitive
and
at
the whole
beginning,
bit.
right?
It's like, yeah. And now what? You get up, you get out, you're in the car, you start it up, you go, you're drinking a coffee, you know. Half the time, I remember so many times arriving at a destination going, oh, I don't remember passing Lake Avenue. It's like, oh, I guess I must have because I'm here.
You can do it in your sleep after a while.
Yeah, and so I mean that really correlates to anything that we do. You don't know how to do it till you do it, and then once you start doing it, that's going to give you the momentum to start learning maybe better ways to do it. And that all comes down to creativity. You know, I use driving as an example, but you know, in a business setting, a lot of times in order to get to the next level and to stay competitive in the market and things like that, you're going to have to try some different things and do some different things that, hey, maybe this hasn't been done before, but let's go. And you know, and a lot of times what holds people back and keeps them from getting into that challenge zone of doing things you haven't done before is they think they need to know all the steps before they get going. And it's like, you don't. You just need to know the first step.
Well, I think what happens to a lot of people is they don't have confidence in they, you know, and you can't muster up confidence. The way that confidence unfolds, okay, is first off, like I said, when God says something to you, that settles it.
Right.
You have to know that's him. And it's not about self-confidence, it's about confidence in what he said and that he promises to give us the grace, the provision, the opportunity, all those things, right? So it's confidence. To have confidence, the way that unfolds, like you said, is when he says something, first you take a step of action. And because you did that, you start to see some results.
Right.
And because you see some results, you take another step.
Right.
So each time it builds your confidence up more, and now you begin to trust what he's saying over what you're feeling, because your feelings will change as you develop that trust. But I think a lot of people don't realize how that happens, and they feel like every time we have a feeling, we feel like we're going to be there forever.
Right. But, and how many times you get a feeling and within minutes it's passed?
Right.
You know, you just have to stay focused on the growth and the goal. And, you know, I tell people, do something to grow yourself every day.
Right.
You know, I talk to people that are in business and they want to lead a group. I'm like, well, what are you doing for self-development? They want to develop their group, but they're not developing themselves.
Well, it comes,
and until they do, the group's not going to develop either.
Well, one of the things I've noticed as someone who leads groups on a regular basis, okay, I feel like people think that they are their feelings, and you're not your feelings.
Right.
Okay, when we live, we are a spirit one with God, and that's where that creativity comes from.
Right.
We realize who we are, then we're not going to be letting our feelings be in charge of what's going on.
Right.
That comes. They're supposed to submit to what the Spirit is showing us. Okay.
Right.
So when it's not, and not to kind of go against what you were saying, but I think in order to do something, you have to be someone. So it's not like you're trying to do something. You have to know who you are.
Right.
And from that, you do stuff. And a lot of times I see people trying to do, and they still don't know they are. So it's all, and it creates anxiety because they're like, I hope this works. That's not, hoping it works is not faith.
You have to be before you can do.
Yeah. Hoping it works is not faith.
I
Knowing that God said it.
Yeah, I think we're saying the same thing, just taking a little bit different path. And that leads me to that fourth zone, and that's the creative zone. Right. And to me, the creative zone, I know for myself, is when I'm able to meditate and basically, for lack of a better way, to get on the same page with God's intentions for my life.
Imagine what's possible, right?
And that's imagining what's possible. And the creativity and using your imagination is all about thinking thoughts that you've never thought before, perhaps. Because, there's always more than one way to do something.
Yep.
And if you're trying to accomplish a certain thing, whether it's with your family, with your business, or a church setting, whatever the organization happens to be, always know there's more than one solution. And what you're trying to do is get to the best solution.
It's really important. That's good, Mark.
And sometimes you have to test 2 or 3 different things to get to that best solution. What happens a lot of times is people are afraid to fail, but use failure as your friend. because what's happening is you're learning what doesn't work, and that's ultimately
Right.
going to lead you to what does work. One of the books that I love that John Maxwell wrote is called Failing Forward, and that talks all about that. Is not looking at failure as a ultimate, that's the end. Look at failure as that's the next step to find out how we're going to make this work.
Right. All right. Well, we're going to take a brief break. We do this so that you can support those who support us. So we encourage you to do that. We'll be back after this brief message. Stay tuned.
Marc Major knows that great coaches need constant training to be effective. As a certified coach, teacher, and speaker with the John Maxwell team, Marc can help you identify and activate your personal and professional goals. If you seek to do more and be more, look up Marc on the web at johnmaxwellgroup.com/MARC Major or call 603-674-6818. Marc Major, growing leaders and adding value.
Hi, I'm Bob Bola, Chief Instructor of Defensive Strategies and anchor of the Personal Safety segment, where we talk about personal protection, situational awareness, and home defense. Tune in every Thursday at 9 a.m. and refuse to be a victim. Only on In It Together with Lori Lynn Green.
Welcome back to In It Together. We're in the midst of It's a Wonderful Life today, talking with Marc about, kind of thinking your way to success, but kind of how creativity and your imagination is important with that. Okay, shut that off. Is important in thinking out of the box.
Right. Yeah, we were talking about failing forward earlier. I'll tell you what, I can remember from my earliest time first breaking into the advertising business, because I was in advertising sales for 17 years. And, I was working right here in Manchester at WGIR Radio and Rock 101. And, going out probably for the first month or so, just going out and talking to people, knocking on doors, maybe I got, one sale in 15 attempts. And that, so I was looking at it as, oh, you failed this many times. But what was actually happening is that I was learning how to present myself, how to present the product in the best light. And, that's where I learned. That's where I cut my teeth on sales, to the point of learning that the sales process isn't necessarily about what they can do for me, but how I can benefit their business. And within several months, I was like one of the top billers on that radio station because of the lessons I learned. But if I hadn't have gone through what most people would consider failures,
right,
I would have never gotten to that point. And here's another thing, too. I know in that industry, we used to have this saying, you're either going to wash out in the first 3 months or you're going to have a long career with it. And that's true. A lot of people got discouraged after a few months. Hearing no a lot of times is discouraging.
It's not just
but
I think
I was
the sales
stubborn enough to stick it out.
Yeah, but it's not just the sales industry. And I think you gave this ridiculous number, a few months back when we were talking about how many times we hear the word can't before we're like 17.
Yeah.
And I think that's what happens to people is before they allow that change in themselves and that confidence to come, they give up.
Right.
And so I remember reading a book years ago called Success is Never Ending and Failure is Never Final.
Yeah, great book.
Yeah, I don't even remember the author, but that stands out to me as you're talking about this. People look at failure as if it's the end of the world.
Right.
And failure, if we look at failure, like you said, as a tool to show us what not to do or to get our creativity to think about what other ways we can do it.
Right.
That's what's making us grow.
Exactly.
That's the very change we need.
Yeah. And so...
because we're taking off the limit.
Yeah. And then, after 17 years of that, I changed careers and went into retail management. And, I was totally lost for probably a good year, but stuck it out and eventually... became a manager where I managed my own stores successfully. But it was a lot of trial and error. And, fortunately for me along the way, I was able to plug into some good mentors. In fact, I found out the other day that really my first mentor in the radio business was actually the gentleman who actually owned that chain of radio stations at the time, Mr. Knight, Norman Knight.
Norman Knight.
Yeah, back in the day, we had to, we didn't have all the computers and all the fancy stuff, so we had to take turns, every so many Saturday mornings to drive down to Boston and bring him all the sales reports and things like that. And he used to, so there was like people from 6 or 8 different radio stations there. And once he got to know me, he always used to hold me back till last. So he could spend
talk to you.
So he could spend some time and mentor me on sales and different things. And that really showed me, and as I look back on it now, how important mentorship is and coaching. And I found out the other day through another friend that he's actually still around. He's going to be 95 in July.
Wow.
Yeah, I actually wish I could go back and talk to him and let him know how much I appreciate that mentorship.
I love this story. I actually love both your stories because, see, what this showed, Mark, is in both of those situations, you went into something kind of, and there was always a learning curve, and that's true for all of us.
Right.
But I'm sure as you went on, like now that you're in the coaching and things like this, the thing that makes it easier is now you have a relationship with God and you can hear what He's. So I don't believe life is supposed to be really trial and error all the time as much. I mean, I'm not saying we're not learning and growing, but there are people who have to learn the hard way.
Right.
But I feel like the Word tells us that the way of a transgressor is hard.
Well, and I think, to your point, in conjunction with what I was just saying, is that when you're seeking out to do things, God actually will put the people in your path that will help you to get there.
He gives you everything you need for life and godliness. He really does.
The circumstances come up, the people come into your life, and that's that's an energy thing too. As you start to be positive and you have positive goals and you're moving in a positive direction, you start to attract positive people to you in positive circumstances.
Right. Yeah, because when you connect it in that spiritual level, you're in a whole different realm, a whole different ball game. Because now it's not like I'm trying to guess everything. Now it's like I heard him say it, so I know that all I got to do is just pay attention to how it's unfolding.
Yeah.
And partner with it.
Well, a lot of times people say, "Well, I don't hear God." Well,
that's something we can learn in coaching too.
You're not listening.
Well, some people just don't know. And here's the reality. It tells us that unless a man's born again, he can't see the kingdom, and then enter against another whole story. So in order to do that, your spirit needs to be made alive again.
Right.
And that way, your spirit becomes one with Him, and now you can have His mind about how He thinks about things.
Well,
people don't get that. So.
Exactly. The thing that I let people know, and more recently too, and it's just really as I'm connecting with people, is letting people know. Most people think they're a human body, and we go to church once in a while and do our spiritual thing.
Well, they think they're their emotions.
Right.
Yeah.
We're spiritual beings, and I say trapped in a human body.
Yeah.
To do what we need to do here on earth, but we're really spiritual beings first and foremost. And, the Bible talks about He saw us even before we were born. He knew the life that was planned ahead for us and so forth. And that's what we really have to tap into.
Well, I think what we're talking about is if we're looking for answers, directions, where that creativity comes from, it comes from spirit. And a lot of times people live from, let's look outside here, and we think that we're going to take what's outside and bring it in. Right. And sometimes that's okay if He's directing it, but we're supposed to live from the inside out.
It's an inside-out process.
Our soul, which is our mind, will, and emotions and desires, are supposed to connect to what the Spirit is saying, and then we work it out.
Right. Exactly.
And so many times people wonder why they continue to fail, struggle, have anxiety, not enjoying the journey. It's because they're doing it backwards.
Right. Yeah. You're and really, when you're doing it that way, you're out of balance with what you're supposed
not aligned
to be doing.
To it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, oftentimes in my Bible time, in my study time, when I'm spending that quiet time, I'll read a passage or I'll read something, and it's like, that's exactly what I'm supposed to hear today. That's exactly what I'm supposed to. That's the answer, and it's right there. And why did I get it? Because I spent that time. I spent that solitude time studying and learning. When people say, well, I don't know what's God's plan for me, well, connect. You know, to me, that Bible is the handbook of life.
I think people, and the reason is because people, our view of him, it really matters how we receive from him. Everybody feels like he's this thing way out there, but it's like a relationship with a person. It's like
he's inside us.
Yeah, he's spirit.
He is spirit, and we have that spirit inside us. So it's not like, you know, and I think part of it comes from people's upbringing. A lot of people think he's this mean old guy with a white beard, waiting to rain down.
Waiting to clock you when you mess up.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for you to mess up. And it's like, no.
That's not the way it is.
He's
greatest
a
encourager.
good father.
Yeah.
And think about a father. A father wants the best for his kids. Well, he wants the best for us, too. So just plug in and find out what that best is.
What's the Jeremiah 29:11? For I know the plans that I have for you. Actually, what he says is, I know the thoughts that I think to you about you. Thoughts of good and not of evil, to give you a future and a hope.
Right.
So he's thinking about us. Good.
Yeah. I mean, and it's funny you mentioned that passage, because I have that taped up on my bathroom mirror, and I see that every morning to remind me that it's all good.
So if you're struggling with, you know, where am I going? What am I going to do? I don't know what I want, things like this. If you could know this one thing, that you weren't just born for nothing. You were created in the likeness and image of God. He has good plans for your life. He wants to give you the desire of your heart. As a matter of fact, he puts it there, and he wants to help you to realize that fulfillment of that, and enjoy the journey while you're doing it.
Yeah, it's like my pastor says, you're not an accident, you're an on purpose. You were created on purpose for a purpose.
It's true.
And that's what we need to realize.
That's absolutely right. Well, Mark, we are out of time, but again, always a great time talking with you.
Yeah.
And I hope this was encouragement to those of you who are listening and watching today. And Mark, why don't you give some contact information?
Yeah, if people want to talk further about this, you can message me on my Facebook page, since a lot of people are tuning in right on Facebook. But you can reach me at 603-674-6818 or mark.major@comcast.net. Love to talk to you.
Well, that basically concludes today's program then. Thank you, Mark. And tomorrow, if you want to join us at 9 a.m., Bob Bolehard from Defensive Strategies, he's the master trainer, will help us to stay safe and refuse to be a victim. So have a blessed day, and remember, we are in it together.